Hi guys, it is Aoife from Fred VC Diet Laughing and I'm here with my weekly wrap up, and I got loads of books read, so as usual I'm going to go straight on into it. The first book I read this week was an audiobook and it was Fields of Home by Marita, Conlon-McKenna, and this is actually the third book in the Under the Hawthorn Tree series, which you guys, if you guys have been around a while, you guys know I have been listening to over the past few months. So the first book is Under the Hawthorn Tree, which focuses on three siblings in Ireland trying to survive the famine in the 1800s, and then the second book, Wildflower Girl, focuses on the youngest sibling, Peggy. She's a little bit older and she emigrates to America to become a housemaid, and it's kind of her surviving in America completely alone and just learning more things about herself and growing up a little bit. And now the third book kind of focuses on all of them at different points in their lives, and so we have the oldest sibling, Eily, who is now married with 2 children, and she is worrying about the rent being raised on the land that her and her husband live on, and that his family have been farming for generations, but they obviously don't own the land because back then very few Irish people actually owned the land that they lived on for years and years and years. It was all owned by English landlords, and the rent keeps getting increased, so they are really worried that they are going to be evicted. This one was narrated by Caroline Lennon, who narrated the first 2 books as well, and she did a really good job. She's just really nice to listen to. This book is only 4.5 hours long, so it was really quick to listen to as well, and I just really enjoyed it. It wasn't my favourite one of the series, but again I just really enjoyed seeing this little look at just some of the struggles that Irish people had to go through, whether it was, dealing with being alone in America, having emigrated away from their family, or suddenly losing jobs because their landlords have gone back to England, and then with Eily's family having to deal with the fear of eviction, which was a very real fear for a lot of Irish people, kind of seeing the rising feelings between the tenants and the landowners, and how how it was kind of sparking that it would eventually become one of the Irish rebellions. So yeah, I really enjoy reading this again. This is technically a children's book, but is told in a way that adults can really enjoy as well, and it's told in a way that is simple for children to enjoy and easy for them to read, but also is told in a really great way that they can kind of understand what is going on and what was going on in that time for Irish people. So it's really educational, but just really nice to read as well, and really nice as an audiobook, so I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next book I read was The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. I've actually been reading this over the past week, and I buddy read this with April over at Getting Higger With It, and I will link her below, and I really enjoyed my buddy read with April with this one. So this is a book that is set in kind of 3 or 4 different perspectives. So we are first meeting this little girl who is found on this dock in Australia by I think it's the dock master, and she's completely on her own. She doesn't remember anything. She's only about 3 or 4. She literally remembers nothing about who she is. She doesn't remember her name, and it appears that someone has left her there, and we have no idea why. Then we're meeting the girl as she's a little bit older, and she's kind of starting to figure out that her parents aren't really her biological parents, and she starts figuring out that she's told that she was found on this dock, and then it's years later, and we are following that girl's granddaughter who is gone back to England to try and figure out her grandmother's story and what is happening there, and we are kind of figuring out basically where this little girl came from, and why she ended up being left alone on this ship, and how she ended up in Australia completely by herself. So I really enjoyed this. I didn't love it, but I've heard a lot of really great things about Kate Morton, so I was really excited to go into this one. I think I struggled for a little to get really into the book, and myself and April talked about it a little bit. We were saying that there's probably there's 3 or 4 different timelines eventually in it, and I think one of them could probably have been taken away. We didn't need every single one of those, so sometimes you would be in one timeline and you'd be really enjoying it, and then it would change to another timeline, and that kind of got a bit annoying sometimes when you wanted to stick with one particular one. I particularly enjoyed the one that was in the early 1900s. I really enjoyed that one. I didn't always want to go back to the point of views that were in kind of the present day. I kind of wanted to stick in the past because that was just the timeline I really enjoyed reading about, and I really enjoyed the characters in that one. I did like the mystery in this. It did definitely had me guessing a lot of things. I was kind of going back and forth trying to figure out what was actually going on in it, and who, where this little girl, where Nell came from, who she belonged to, why she ended up where she was. I really did enjoy trying to figure that out throughout the story, and I did enjoy how that was kind kind of all wrapped up. There's parts of this that are quite light and there's other parts that are a little bit dark, but I did quite enjoy it. And originally when I first finished this, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, but I think on reflection, after talking a little bit more with April about how we both felt about different parts of the book, I think I would probably change it to a 3.5 out of 5 stars. But I'll definitely try and pick up more Kate Morton soon, because I have heard really good things about her later books as well. Next book I read was The Woodcutter by Kate Danley. This is one of my TBR jar picks that I picked out a few months ago, and this is kind of a fairy tale retelling. It's not even a fairy tale retelling, but it is like fairy tale-esque, and it is about this. We are following this man called the Woodcutter, who is basically kind of like the guardian of these woods that surrounds this, is kind of in the middle of these 12 kingdoms and kind of connects all these 12 kingdoms to each other. And we're meeting this man called the Woodcutter, who isn't technically altogether human. He seems to be kind of almost like a fairy of the woods, but he's not a fairy, but he's not human. Almost like, I guess, a human embodiment of the wood itself. And we're meeting him as he finds the body of this girl wearing these glass slippers in the wood, and she is dead, and he knows that she shouldn't be dead, that there's something really weird going on, and he basically is trying to figure out that there's something sinister going on with the woods. Everything isn't completely right, everything's not 100% okay, and he's trying to figure out what is going on. And we see him as he's just kind of traveling around the woods, and he's meeting all these different fairy tale characters, and some of them are like not even like fairy tale characters. Some of them, like, there were some mentions of Norse gods at one point, and then the fairy, like King and Queen Oberon and Titania as well. So I really enjoyed that. So this is kind of like a whimsical book. It's written in a very, very whimsical way, but it was a very enjoyable way as well. And like, I can't really explain too much about what this book is about, because I just think if you like kind of those fun takes on fairy tales, where you have this kind of whimsical fun tale with a little bit of dark twistiness that you would expect from kind of like the Grimm fairy tales, I feel like you would really like this. But it is one that's a little bit strange, it's a little bit odd. Storytelling, the way the story is told, and then just the story itself, it's all a little bit strange. But I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars as well. And yeah, I did really enjoy it. I read it in basically one sitting, which was great. And yeah, I did really enjoy it, and I'm glad that I eventually picked it up. Next book I read was a science fiction book, and it was Planetfall by Newman. And this is a bit of a strange book to try and explain. So this is about a ship of people who have made basically this kind of colony settlement on this planet under what they're called God City. And all we learn is that these people followed this one woman called Sumi, and she had basically been in a coma and gotten some kind of vision. She was on Earth, and she went into a coma, and she had these visions of this other planet and this god that was calling out to them. And basically all these people believed her, and they went up onto this ship, and they they flew to this other planet, and they found this kind of city, this god city that they called it, and then they created this colony underneath this city. And something happened when they arrived, and we're meeting them maybe like several decades down the line, and we're meeting them as someone who is not of the colony comes and finds them, and they bring him in and they accept him because he is Sumi's grandson. And we're kind of figuring out what exactly happened to Sumi when they arrived on this planet. There's a lot of secrets that are being unravelled. So this book was written in like a really easy way. The writing itself was quite simple, and it was easy to follow along with, and it was like fast to read. But the story itself was just a little bit like meh for me. I just thought that a lot of things could have been explained more. Like, I feel like the fact that these people like left Earth and got to this planet, I was like, but like, how did they just have this like spaceship like ready to bring all these people from Earth to this other planet? Like, how do they find this planet in like, you know, like, I don't know, I just had so many questions about that, like that initial journey from Earth to this planet, and I just felt like it wasn't really explained that well. The ending of it was a little bit weird. It was just one of those science fiction novels that like was easy to read but harder to understand, and I think it's one of those like ones that would just be really particular for particular people, where for me, I kind of like my science fiction novels to be a little bit more open, I guess, and more kind of, I don't know, not quite so like, I don't know, I just need to be told more, I need more things explained to me. So yeah, I feel like This one might be for people who are really big fan of Anne Leckie and her ancillary series, or her ancillary trilogy I should say. Like it's a different story, but I kind of feel like maybe if you like that kind of science fiction novel you might like this one, though don't quote me on that, I don't know. But yeah, I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, and it was okay, but it wasn't great. I don't know if I will read the next book, which is called After Atlas, I think, which is, I don't know if it's technically a prequel or a sequel, I do not know. The last book I read this week was an urban fantasy. It was Clockwork City by Paul Crilley, and this is the second book in the Delphic Division series. Yeah, the Delphic Division series, and the first book was Poison City, where we followed this detective, this supernatural detective called London, and he lives in South Africa, and he basically, you know, detects all these supernatural crimes. It is a world where humans are living alongside elves and trolls and goblins and all these supernatural creatures, but they don't know about it. And in this book we are just kind of following along with London as he travels to London. London travels to London, and he is trying to figure out just like all these weird things are happening, and he's trying to figure out how it all connects to him, and it connects to the disappearance of a daughter years earlier, which is something he'd been trying to solve in the first book, Poison City, as well. I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed it a lot more than the first one. I just thought I kind of fell into the story a lot quicker, and I think there was just so much action in it. I just got really invested in the storyline. I enjoyed London's character more. He has this spirit guide who is a talking dog, but like a really crude version. Like he's really crude and really vulgar, and like really loves alcohol, and it's just like, you know, he's just really rude. He's basically like Ted from the movie Ted, where like he's just like this pot smoking teddy bear. Like he's kind of like that, except in dog form. He's really funny, but there's some really sweet moments between them as well, which I really liked. And I love the fact that actually I was in London earlier on this week, and it just happened that so many of the places that were actually mentioned in this book I had actually been to during this week. So I was able to recognise a lot of places they were talking about, and it was just one of those funny coincidences. So I really liked that. So it really kind of brought something to my reading experience as well, so that was great. So I would actually really recommend Poison City, which is the first book, and then Clockwork City. Like I think I gave Poison City a 3.5 stars, where Clockwork City is a 4 stars, because I really enjoyed that one. I definitely enjoyed it more than Poison City, so this one was a pleasant surprise for me that I enjoyed it so much. But yeah, I really enjoyed my reading experience of it again, and I read it really fast. So 4 out of 5 stars. And that is everything I read this week. Please let me know what you guys think about the books I read. What books did you read? I would love to know. Please leave a comment down below and let me know. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys again next time.